And we are here yet again, 3 episodes in a row, I think, where I'm on the river facing half pot on an ante-table, giving justifications for calling. Yo guys, what's up? Ben Ababi here, and welcome back to another episode of A Road Back to High Stakes. So before we jump on into the graph and today's hands, I just want to say a big thank you to those of you who watched last week's video. It's doing really well. And I think probably a big part of the reason it's doing well is because the hands I posted were pretty out there, let's just put it that way. But to those of you who have subscribed, a big thank you to you. And those of you who haven't subscribed, please do go ahead and click that subscribe button because we are going to be doing a giveaway at 10,000 subscribers. So as is very apparent in the graph, we basically had a polar opposite week this week to the last week. We're not going to go too much into it. Obviously, there's just so much variance in these very small samples. But what I will say is that I made about 22 buy-ins and also about $17,000 while running about $1,000 below EV. And that is obviously before rate back as well. I also made quads about 3 or 4 times over the week and actually won a couple of stacks as well with those quads. So needless to say, things are going very well at the moment, and we can only hope that this continues for the foreseeable future. So on to today's hands. We have got an extra hand today, so we're going to go with 5. So the first hand, we absolutely rifle it off, as is very common now on this channel, with ace high versus a new thing. Wasn't sure if they're a recreational or a reg. We get involved in a really weird and marginal spot versus a tight-ish recreational player on the ante-table. And ultimately, we get involved in a very strange limp raise pot on an ante-table where we have top pair, but it runs out pretty filthy. And lastly, we have a very spicy 4-bet pot versus a reg. So in the first hand today, we have got ace-8 of clubs on the button, and we go ahead and open it up, and we get 3-bet by this thing in the big blind. I say thing because I wasn't sure if they were a recreational or a reg. Having played with them for quite a bit longer, I'm actually erring on the side of them probably being like more reg than recreational, but still a little bit unknown. My overall reads on them that they got stacked on another table, and generally speaking, they were very willing to put it in, quite aggressive and also fairly sticky. Admittedly, it was a very small sample. We're talking probably maybe 20 hands, and they had been all in maybe twice. So yeah, I don't have a huge number of reads on them other than that. With ace-8 of clubs, I think I'm just going to be calling my combo versus an unknown. I don't really think 4-betting. I mean, 4-betting is definitely going to be a thing in theory, but versus a like new presumed recreational, I just want to see flops and realize my edge that way. We see 9-7-5 rainbow. They start out with a check. I think we have a pretty mandatory bet. I think in theory it's probably going to mix again, but versus an unknown player on a board that definitely is going to be seen as quite scary and favoring the in-position player, I just think betting always is just going to be a very good option versus someone that you don't know. We see a 3 of hearts on the turn and villain checks. I think when they check call the flop, they're going to have a bunch of ace high hands. I think they're even going to have some king highs as well, some king queens, for example. Then they're going to have some pocket pairs under the 9, like 6s and 8s. Then they're going to have something like 6-5s, some 7-6, some maybe even some ace-9 or something like that. Either way, I think our hand just makes a very intuitive turn barrel. Probably would prefer to bet ace-6 if we could have it. I mean, maybe I would versus this player that I didn't know. But I just think applying max pressure in a node like this is just gonna be a good play. We see a 9 of spades on the river, and I think it's fair to say that out of position probably doesn't have that many overpairs taking this line. I think they're either going to c-bet, either check raise, or check raise the turn. So I don't think those overpairs feature that much. I think there is some 9x, but actually we just block the 9x very heavily. 9-8 suited and also ace-9 suited. If I had hearts here, I definitely would give up. But when I have clubs here and I also block 9-8 and ace-9, I think just going for this very regularly and trying to make them fold a hand like ace-king or ace-queen of hearts or something like that, or maybe a hand like 6s or 8s. So with all that in mind, I tank for a bit and then shove, and we get absolutely snap called by 7-6 of spades, which I'm not really expecting any player to fold 7-6. I would hope that they would maybe think about it a little bit more, but clearly on this occasion they were not willing to fold this hand. Nice hand to them. Next up, we have got pocket 10s in MP at 4-ring ante-table. So I'd like to just quickly ask people who are watching the video now, what do we think of these 4-ring ante-hand histories? Do we prefer just having these 6-max hand histories, or do you actually like having a bit of a diversity with a mix of different stakes, different formats? Let me know in the comments below. So we do open pocket 10s, we get called from the cutoff and called from the big blind. Now, as I've said in previous videos, dark green tag is potential recreational, I wasn't sure. I decided to check the flop. I think that's kind of an okay line here, particularly three-way. You're going to see a number of stabs, and this is a good spot to be check raising. I do go ahead and check their stats, and we do see a cold call out the big blind who was definitely a recreational player. I think now we just have a clear as day check raise, and I make it $104. Maybe a little bit on the big side, but assuming we're playing two recreationals, it can never be so bad. Protection is quite important as well. Cutoff does call. When they call, I'm expecting a bunch of flush draws, some pairs. I'm not really expecting there to be sets in there now. So in game, I decided to check the turn, and in hindsight, I think this is just actually a really, really bad check. I just think that because villain has chosen to just call our check raise and not 3-bet, a jack shouldn't really change too much. If anything, it should just improve our range. And you might argue that we're playing a recreational, so who cares about that? It is true, but also denial is quite important here. We don't want to give a free card to like a flush draw or like a 7-6 or an 8-7 or something like that. So yeah, in hindsight, definitely would have preferred to see myself bet. But I see half pot from a presumed recreational. This doesn't scream strength to me. Maybe you perceive this spot differently, but I'm pretty happy with my combo here now. I think there's a chance it could be a hand like king jack of spades, but I don't ever really think it's going to be a nutted hand, particularly like a set, because they didn't 3-bet the flop as well. Now we river a what can only be described as a pretty disguised set, and villain gets out the 3/4 pot on the river. So I'd be really interested to ask those of you who are watching this video, what does this feel like to you right now? Is this just a very, very clear shove to you? Are you ever going to fold? I mean, obviously you're never going to fold. Or are you just going to call with about 300 behind? The reason I ask that is because in my Discord channel, hopefully the link will be somewhere either on the screen or in the comments below. Please do join, where people are talking about hand histories a lot, ridiculing other hand histories like this one. A few people in that Discord basically said that this is the clearest shove of all time. You're playing a recreational and you have a set, you have to go all in. There were other people in the Discord who think actually this is probably just a call. Honestly, I'm still kind of on the fence. In position here, I don't believe, given the sizing scheme that they've chosen, they've called a check raise on the flop, and then they've also only bet half pot on the turn. I never really expect a recreational to have 9s, 5s, or 3s in this line. Correct me if I'm wrong, and if you think something differently, definitely do let me know. The other thing is that 8-7 has now filled up, as well as king queen of spades. So with that in mind, what are we really expecting to get called by? There were some jokes that maybe a recreational has just called 5-3 suited and then just going to call off 2-pair. I'm definitely not convinced by all of that. But either way, let me know what you think about this spot, and I will now show you what I did. As I said, I didn't really love the spot, but I did think that we just kind of had to shove our hand. So that is what I do. We get very quickly called by Queen 8 of spades for the straight, so I am still very, very unsure as to what I think about this hand. So next up we have a very rare WPN hand history, and we have ace 4 of clubs in the cutoff. We get a limp from a very, very loose recreational, and we make it 4x in the cutoff with ace 4 of clubs. We then get re-ISO to $130 from the small blind and the recreational folds. I think we want to do a bit of both here, of 4-betting and calling, and on this occasion I do elect to call. I think I'm going to be choosing to 4-bet hands like ace queen offsuit pretty much always here. We see king jack 4 with a flush draw, we got bottom pair, and I am expecting to see big bets from some players on this texture, but on this occasion they do go 1/3 pot. If they did go big, I would just fold the flop, I think. But when they go 1/3 pot, I'm never going anywhere. I think there actually are some very good merits to raising here. We block the 3-bet shoves from hands like ace, king, and aces, and also just bluffing your bottom pairs here and under pairs, and I don't really have the under pairs that much, if I'm being honest with you. So we see a 10 of diamonds on the turn. Really interesting card. I think the imposition here in this configuration is going to have more flushes. The reason for that is because when I ISO and small blind re-ISOs us, and we defend, I'm never going to really have hands like ace queen offsuit. I'm going to be going to the flop with way more combos like 6-5 suited, 7-6 suited, 9-8 suited, ace 3 suited, ace 5 suited, etc. Admittedly, small blind is going to have some of those combos, mainly the ace high ones, but the re-ISO range, generally speaking, is just not really the low diamonds, it's more high card heavy. So therefore, I think I just have a pretty big advantage in flushes here. Admittedly, I don't have ace queen offsuit, whereas out of position definitely does have ace queen offsuit way more than we do, but we do obviously have the ace queen suited varieties. So in this situation here, I think my hand makes a very, very good bluff. Not only have we arrived with kind of bottom range, because we can't really defend any worse worse hands on the flop, I would rather bluff this than I think a 5-4. The reason for that is that out of position now is going to have hands with an ace that are going to be calling, like aces with a diamond, for example. And by us having an ace, they're just naturally going to have less continues here. Not to mention they're going to have ace queen less as well. So with that in mind, I decided to bluff my combo always, and the sizing I'm going to use is going to be built around probably maybe king jack, but definitely sets plus. And I don't really want to carve a sizing around a hand like jack 10, but maybe like king jack, king 10 could go half pot. It seems a bit thin though, to be honest with you. We see a deuce clubs on the river, and we've arrived with a pretty good bluffing candidate. As you can see, I've instantly slid up the bet slider. I don't really arrive with any other premium bluffing combos. You may argue that a hand like queen jack would make a very good bluff, but I actually think the queen is going to be the folding combos for out of position. Hands like pocket queens and king queen mainly. So after a bit of posture, I do go all in, and villain starts tanking hard. They eat through their initial time bank and then start eating into their real time bank and count all the way down to a timeout fold. We will definitely take that one. Next up, we are at another 2-5 ante-table, and we are four-handed, and we get a limp from a reg in the small blind. We have a very clear ISO, and we make it $40. We get limp raised to 140. Plenty of players are playing this strategy, and I think it is a very good one, and I have a very clear call. We flop a very pleasing top pair on queen 8-3 with a backdoor flush draw, and villain starts out with a small bet. Now, I will throw a disclaimer out there now. I do not know how the limp raising range goes in these situations, because I have never studied one of those scenarios. I have studied limp spots and sims, but this is quite different because of the ante and the ranges being completely whack. So I imagine that there may well be some raises on this texture, but on this occasion, I do just call. See a fairly bricky, or should I say a very bricky 5 of spades on the turn, bringing a flush draw, and villain now gets out the 75% pot, 280. So you can see I am now considering shoving. I think shoving is actually like a pretty good option. The reason I decided not to shove is that I'm not really denying that amount of equity with my combo. I do get called by some worse hands, admittedly, a hand like king queen or queen jack, but a hand like 7-6 or jack 10, jack 9, they have very, very, very little equity that I don't think I need to be shoving those combos when I'm in position. If this was like somehow a blind v blind spot and I'm out of position, I definitely think shoving becomes a lot more attractive, because on the river, in a situation where maybe they are bluffing the turn and I check to them on a brick, they do then have the option to check back. Whereas in this situation, I am always going to get a chance to shove in position. I don't know if that's just absolute fish logic from me, and maybe there are some shoves. As you can see, I'm absolutely in the weeds right now. I have no idea what's going on, but I do decide to just call my combo for the simple fact I don't think I'm denying that much equity here by shoving. The other thing to note is I don't really know what the limp raising range looks like, so perhaps there are even combos like jack 10 offsuit in there as well. We see a disaster king of hearts on the river. I say disaster because this is the only card, pretty much apart from a spade, where I'm actually very, very unhappy. Obviously, any other overcard gives us top 2 pair, and then there are going to be some connected cards which aren't ideal, but you just kind of like side call and probably value catch versus ace queen. Whereas now villain can shove like hands like king jack, for example, with a spade, which is extremely unideal. And we are here yet again, 3 episodes in a row, I think, where I'm on the river facing half pot on an ante-table, giving justifications for calling, but at least this time I don't have ace high like the other 2 episodes. I think in this situation, I am very, 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 very unsure what to do. But the difference here is that obviously we do have a much, much better hand, not only in terms of relative hand strength, but also in terms of very good blockers. We block king, queen suited, block pocket aces, and we do block ace, king. Now, out of position probably just isn't going to have ace, king all that much, but I think they are going to have it sometimes. Lastly, spades do miss as well, but there could be a combo like king, spade, jack, as I said. I just think that there are way, way, way fewer combos of hands like king jack that choose to limp raise. I think most of those combos go into the open or the limp call range before the limp raise range. So I do think combos like king jack and king 10 are somewhat discounted, and they make more intuitive limp calls, I think, from population rather than limp raises. There will be suited hands though, however, and those will be exclusively king x of spades, I would say. Obviously, that does make up a relatively narrow portion of the range when you start factoring in all the combos of like jack 10, 10 9, 7 6, ace 4, ace 2. So with all that in mind, I think if I have a hand like queen 10, I definitely fold. Obviously, the reason for that is that we're blocking too many bluffs with the 10. But when I do block king, queen, and aces, I think that we probably just have to flick it in and call. I really don't want to show the result just so I can see people's comments, because I have quite a strong feeling that people are watching these videos and being extremely result oriented and jumping to all sorts of conclusions. But for the sake of the video, I obviously will show the result this time. I do end up tanking for a very long time to decide that my bluff catcher is just too premium and end up calling. And on this occasion, we do win, finally, versus the ace 4 of hearts. Very much like their line, can't really do anything else on the river, as well played to them. So next up, we are on ACR again, and we have king, queen offsuit on the button, and we open it up, and we get 3-bet by the big blind, who is a solid, good, winning reg. I think they should actually definitely have an upgraded tag. I just haven't changed my tags on ACR for a long time because I play such low volume. So with king, queen offsuit, I am going to play theory in this situation, and theory will dictate that there will be some 4-bet and some call. I think versus a good winning player, I don't really want to just be always calling or always 4-betting a hand like this. I want to be doing a mix of both. On this occasion, I do 4-bet and I make it $250, which seems like a relatively standard size. We flop top pair on queen 10 9 with 2 diamonds. So I'm gonna start here by saying I haven't looked at the sim in this situation, and I'd also like to make a bit of a confession. I know that there are shoves in 4-bet pots, but I only ever do that when I'm out of position, never really when I'm in position. So that is simply because I am not studied in this exact node when I'm in position. I'm studied quite well in like small bets in 4-bet pots, in and out of position, but when it comes to all-ins in position, I don't really know if that should happen. However, this strikes me, or struck me, as a board that would have flop shoves, but I didn't feel confident enough about doing it to do it, so I reverted to maybe a bit of a lazy strategy, and that is to use small bets. On this particular board, I think that there probably should or might be some leads from out of position. That further means that I'm probably going to be not betting my range on this texture, depending on whether or not you node blocked it, etc, etc. So I decide that I'm going to bet my hand some of the time. I would prefer to bet a combo with a diamond just because it has more equity than this specific combo. So I actually go with a majority bet with my hand, but on this occasion we did hit the check button. We see a 6 of clubs, which is going to improve our position somewhat. They are going to get there with 8-7, although there are a few combos of that and somewhat discounted as well because of the 3-bet and the call of the 4-bet pre. And we see a small bet from out of position. I think we're going to see this as the main bet sizing from out of position. I don't know how frequently it's going to happen. So in hindsight, I would have liked to have seen myself shove the turn sometimes, but I didn't feel strongly about shoving or calling either way, so I just decided to maybe again potentially go for the slightly lazy route and just call my combo. We see a pretty dicey 7 of hearts on the river, and now Villain goes ahead and jams it in for just under pot. So who has more 8s here? I think it's probably fairly even. Is it even? Yeah, I think it is. I don't think out of position gets to block pocket 8s on the turn much at all, if ever. And actually, this also now reduces the combos of 8-7 by a single combo. There aren't really any other bluffs that they can have with the 8. Admittedly, I can actually have some 8s because I will 4-bet ace 8 suited pre-flop, and I don't think out of position will ever call that versus the 4-bet. However, we're not just talking about 8s here, we're talking about the entire value range and also hopefully bluffs. So with my queen, I definitely have a very good bluff catcher in the queen. I also block king jack, which is a huge factor here. I also unblock ace jack, which is very essential. So I have a feeling, and again, I haven't looked at the sim for this one, and I'm going to go out on a limb probably. I think king queen makes a better call than ace queen because ace jack is going to bluff them out of position. The other thing to mention, and because this player is a very competent player, I'm just thinking about 6-5 of diamonds with that bluff. I don't think 6-5 of diamonds would bluff the river. I don't know if it even bet the turn. Maybe it bluffs the river, so that's obviously another combo that we unblock. The other thing with having a king queen instead of ace queen is that out of positions bluffs naturally are going to come from ace 3, ace 4, and ace 5. So I think even though this looks really, really disgusting and it kind of feels a bit dicey, I can't imagine our hand is at least mixing. And in game, because I'm playing a competent player, I just decide I'm going to call my combo all the time and pretty much just hope for the best and hope that they are able to find the bluffs that hopefully they are meant to find. So after a bit of a tank, I do call, and on this occasion, we do find one of those bluffing combos, which is a very, very well played 5-4 of diamonds. But that's going to do it for the video and the hand, so definitely do let me know what you thought about the hand today, and please do go ahead and throw me a sub. It is greatly appreciated. But until next time, take care, and I will see you guys at the tables.